nervous going into that game just because all the kind of commotion around the trade deadline and coming out the back-to-back, and obviously it wasn't like you knew what the Bulls were going to be.
And, we did not know what kind of team is going to be there, who's going to be available. Obviously, when we saw that Simons and Ivy, Yabusele are available, and those are really good veteran players and experienced players. So definitely our antennas were up. I think we were ready for the challenge tonight, and from the start of the game I thought that we took it very seriously, and you gotta give them credit as well. I thought that they played really well. They were able to make 18 threes, and still with that we were able to keep them to 107 points. So I'm pretty satisfied with our defensive effort tonight and how seriously we took this game today.
Colin was very aggressive for the second game in a row, especially around the basket, looking to score instead of mostly looking to kick out like before.
Why is that? Why do you think is that?
Well, it just looked like he was capitalizing a lot more. There was obviously that play in Orlando where he turned down the dunk.
Why?
Why?
Yeah. What do you think?
It's a thumb, are you saying it's a thumb injury?
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a thumb injury. He had a problem, and he's playing with a lot of pain, and he has a problem catching the ball, dribbling the ball. I give him a lot of credit playing through all of that and figuring out how to contribute to the team. So continue with your question.
I don't know. I mean, I guess that's the question.
Yeah. So for sure, he's finding the ways how to be efficient even with that. And you could see that first time he had a dunk, he was grabbing his thumb again. It's just something that he has to learn how to go through. That he needs to play with that protection for the next 5 weeks or so. So it's not gonna disappear overnight. So he has to get adjusted to it. Hopefully, this coming All-Star break can help with that as well.
The deal for Jackson Davis is official now. What's he bring?
There you go.
What's he bring to your roster?
All the information that I have about him is very, very positive. Smart player, high basketball IQ. He can be a lob threat, good rebounder. There's a lot of good things that I heard about his game. Obviously, tomorrow I will spend much more time of watching the film and learning about him. And one very, very positive thing is two of us, we share the same birthday. So that's very positive. Great, that's a great start there.
What's it like integrating a new player like him to your lineup or to your roster?
And this group of guys that we have here is from the start of the training camp is pretty much the same group. So him coming over here, he'll have to catch up with some of our principles and offense and defense. So very excited to have extra body, capable player that can help us in so many ways. So very excited to get him over here and get to work.
Bobby, I mean, what was the trade deadline like from your point of view? Were you kind of hopeful something bigger might happen, or kind of just happy you got just sort of the I's dotted and T's crossed?
Yeah, no, I think we accomplished the objectives, right? We needed to get under the tax. We weren't looking for some front court help. So I think we tried to get our work done early, Monday, Tuesday. Obviously, last night I think the Trace thing, but we've been working on it for a while. Yeah, I mean we had some fun. There were some bigger deals, but I think at this point for this group, we didn't want to chase. You don't want to get in a situation where you felt like you were not necessarily overpaying, but we're still on the upward climb. I think. What are we 2/3 into the season? Pretty positive. Start here. More than a start. The group's coming together. There will be a time where we're gonna push in and consolidate and add some picks, but we just felt the prices at this point were a bit high for us. So
that include like deals for shooters too, or was it more like a big and the tax were more priorities?
Oh no, I think sort of the upper tier players. So I don't think we're at a point where we can be too specific about skill sets. I think we're still trying to get really good players and add them to the group, and so always in the mix. I think we set ourselves up by not trading a ton of picks and having young players and different different contracts that we can sort of be in the mix for most of these. But at the same time, you don't want to feel like you're overextending yourself and maybe putting too many chips in this early in the rebuild for the group.
Were you surprised by what went on around the league? I mean, it's supposed to be hard to make trades because of aprons and the new. It doesn't seem to be true.
I think that's for the people who don't like aprons, but no, I think we've seen the last year and a half, like massive deals, right? Superstars traded both ways, and I think, a lot of smart people, and we employ a lot of them now to think about how to strategically make deals and, work within the rules. I think we've had a couple years here with the new CBA, so I think now people are much more facile with it. When the new rules came out, I think people weren't as, sort of adept at manipulating them or using them, but now I think people understand how to do deals. So.
When you look, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, with Trace, is it someone that you were really interested in his draft years, is it a long-term sort of thing, or what kind of like?
Yeah, I spoke to him yesterday. I told him I think the first time I saw him was down in St. Catharines. There's like a USA tournament down there. It was Kobe White was on the team, Quentin Grimes. It was a pretty good USA team. I think it might have been FIBA's. You guys can look it up. And I said, yeah. And so it was. That's the first time I watched him. Then obviously, great pedigree with his dad, Indiana, Golden State. So I think that was something we've always had our eye on. I think probably timing matters too. We've called on him in the past, and then with Golden State yesterday getting another big man, I think it sort of was a time for him to become free. And so we knew when we did the Ochai deal, we would have the ability on Wednesday to look at some of these guys. And so we didn't have a lot of money to spend, but sort of anyone under $3 million we could look at and bring them in. And so Trace quickly rose to the top of that list, and fortunately the timing worked.
Obviously, there were some pretty high-profile bigs available. Some of them moved, some of them didn't. Are you, Darko talked about it a bit before the game, but are you confident that Yak is going to be available down the stretch here?
Yeah, we've always been confident that Yak's going to be available. I say it's tough if no one in here is 7 foot with a sore back, so I think it's tough, to sort of put yourself in his shoes. But no, we've always felt confident. Obviously, we've known Yak for a while. We drafted him, we traded back for him. So we're excited. Obviously, things can change as he ramps up again here. But no, we're confident, and we think he'll be a good addition.
How important was it while addressing the front court depth to not infringe on Collins' development path and the minutes available to him?
Yeah, that's huge. The silver lining of the Yak injury has been Collin in so many different ways, right? I think, coming out of college, I think, would it translate? By all means, it's translated for sure on the defensive end. The strengths there. Obviously, he's not 7 foot, but for sure it's been a great surprise for us to see him this quickly. Even tonight I was talking to someone. It's like he just sort of fits. He's normal. He stands out in the ways he does stand out. He stands out in the ways he's a rookie. But I don't know. I think he played like 19 minutes in the first half, right? And for a rookie, I think that just being able to have the confidence from coach and from the other players to put him out there, I think is big.
What message would you give to fans who are expecting bigger trades?
Yeah, be patient. We don't need to be in a hurry. I think people forget, maybe think back to what your expectations were coming into the year. And so we've had a lot of positives. Brandon's been great. Scotty's been great. The whole starting unit, RJ and Quickly. And, we talked about what the bench mob could be, but, that group coming off the bench has been really impressive. And so for those of you around the team, I think there's a great energy and there's a great vibe. And so you don't necessarily want to mess with that as well. And so, there's going to be hard evaluations here. This is the hardest part of the season. This is when the brights are the lightest. We've seen this in the past couple games. We'll see it. If we're fortunate enough to be in the play-in or playoff games, is you'll get more evaluation. And so I think probably some of those tougher decisions will come this summer.
Have you done anything with Chris Paul?
What's that?
Have you talked to Chris Paul and come to an agreement to waive him, or? Yeah,
we spoke to the agent yesterday, and I don't know what he's going to do. I just said, listen, Chris Paul is probably one of my favorite players ever, and so it's a weird thing to trade for him, and then he's at this point in his career. So I said, whatever, we want to be the most professional, and so we'll waive him here at the appropriate time.
RJ's name came up a lot in the trade rumor mill. Obviously, he's still young, and he kind of fits the timeline of the team. But do you guys see RJ as a long-term fit with this current group?
Yeah, I think that's what you started out was a rumor mill, and I think it's great for the league. It's great for exposure. It's great for all of us to be part of it. But I think what's the best way? I think everyone talks amongst themselves, and I think that creates a lot of it. But I stay in communication with him, his agent, even in the case of Yak. And so I think they all know that unless they hear from us or, hears from us personally, that they don't, need to worry about all the rumors. As far as RJ, I think, listen, he's had a little bit of injury, bad luck this year. When he's been on the court, we win. I think when he's been on the court, he provides dynamic scoring for them. But listen, we're going to have to win at the highest level. We're going to have to win down here and make it to the playoffs. We're going to have to win in the playoffs. And I think that's what we wanted to do with this group, is see what this group can do the last third of the season, hopefully make some, noise in the postseason, and then we can sort of collect ourselves at the end of the year.
Bobby, when you look at a lot of the sort of splash year deals that went down, expiring money seems to be, more and more important. It wasn't all that long ago that having guys under sort of comfortable team control was sort of a bit more valued. Are you still comfortable with kind of the term we have out on a guy like Quickly or on Yakov, as just with the way the dynamic of the market shifted a little bit?
Yeah, I think it's a little overblown. I think sometimes, I think our payroll is very average. I think we're right in the middle of where we are, especially after the Ochai deal. So I think sometimes the absolute dollars people have a little bit of sticker shock, but I think it's all relative to what other players are getting paid and sort of, if you have someone in the NBA making 60 or 70 million, you kind of have to adjust your terms according to that. As far as deals, I think that's why that Bruce Brown contract was so, intriguing. This may be the first deadline in a while. We haven't had one of those to sort of at least entice teams or put out there. Ochai was $6 million. We were up against the tax, so probably that hurt us a bit. But we didn't have a nice $15 or $20 million expiring. But that's what helped us to get BI, and that's what's helped us over the years to get some of these trades. And so maybe we should give some guys 1-year deals just to have them on the trade block.